Hi, here's some sci-fi that I recommend. Days by James Lovegrove. It is about a department store in the future that has everything and anything. It's huge. I mean, it is really high, it's really wide, and people live for this store. Some people won't even get to shop in this store. It's a privilege. You have to have so much money. You have to work in a certain career. It's a really big deal to go to this store. But something's not right. The brothers that are living in the penthouse that own the store, it was passed down to them. They're involved in some sort of witchcraft ritual that helps their store be the best store in the world, supposedly the best store in the world. I mean, this is the original Days. They're building other Days department stores throughout this story in other areas of the world. But you get the idea of how bleak the lives are of people that they have to live for this store. And one of the store detectives, has become so psychologically scarred that he can't see himself in the mirror. He thinks that I'm invisible. He's like, do I even exist? He does not like his job because when he catches people doing stuff that they're not supposed to do in the store, well, he has to throw them out and they're banned for good. They can't come to the store ever again, and some of them will like commit suicide. There are wild animals living in the basement because the super rich people order these things. And the reason I bring that up is because this store detective, he has a moment with one of the tigers. They, have eye contact, and it seems like they sort of like non-verbally communicate. That's a good scene. I really liked reading that. This was one of those stories, I didn't want to put this down. I'd want to get up in the middle of the night to read it to see what would happen, because you knew something was wrong, something was not right, and it was just all going to explode in everybody's face. There were people that were homeless on purpose because they didn't want to give up their space, because in the morning the windows would open and these huge windows would have all these actors and actresses being families using all the products from Days, and it was always different, and these people didn't want to lose their spot, so they stayed there homeless under those windows. And people yearned to be allowed to go into the store. The couple that this is about, they're also the main characters. The detective is a main character, and they are too. And it tells all about their experiences in the store. The people are all a little off in this book. So, you really get the idea of what a bleak future world this is. There are two departments at war with each other, and it's escalating and escalating. There are acts of terrorism going on because of space. The electronics department wants to take space from the books department. And the lady that runs the books department, her people are really loyal to her, and they're all really extreme. And it's like, it's dangerous because they're literally setting bombs off in each other's departments. And if that isn't enough to shop there, there are roving gangs that might attack you. You could end up in an area where no one's at. Now, this is the future. For some reason, they don't have security cameras. That's the only thing that bothers me about this book. But it was engaging enough that I could overlook that. There were ultra-violent sales. They'd hear that there was going to be a sale in some obscure department. Okay, and the people don't even need those products, and they're only like 10% off, and they'd come and they'd practically kill each other. There'd be all these fights and violence going on during this sale, and it only lasted a few minutes. And when that sale was over, things were broken, people were on the floor, hurt, bloodied, and you felt so sorry. When I read this, I felt so bad for the people that actually worked in these departments where the sales were. So that's just a few. You might think, oh, she told us the whole dang book. No, I didn't. I just gave you a few bullet points about what goes on in this like weird store. And it is good. This was a great book. I'm going to say that this was a great book. Give it a try. Days by James Lovegrove. Now, the next one I wanted to recommend, I got from Book of the Month Club. And it's called Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I've read other stories by him. The Pines, for one. He's a good author. And this is not boring. His books are not boring. He really gets you into it. This is like one of those stories where it's like, what if there were different versions of yourself and different versions of yourself and different virgins and different, not virgin, excuse me, versions, not virgins. But anyway, and they're all out to get you. They all want your life. You think you're the original. You don't even know you have copies. You think you're just living a normal life, happy with your family. Boom. Chaos. Because every one of your versions is out to get you. So I recommend Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Now I recommend the Hyperion novels. You can read them separately. You could read Hyperion and then The Fall of Hyperion, or get them both together, and it's called Hyperion Cantos. These are by Dan Simmons, who is a fantastic writer. Fantastic. And it starts off with Hyperion, which is a planet. There are planets and landmarks on planets that are all named after some Keats character. Mainly the Canterbury Tales. In the Canterbury Tales, they had these pilgrims. And the pilgrims told each of their stories. There were different characters in each one. You would see their stories. And this was kind of like that. They even have a city in this novel named after Keats. Everything and anything you could think of in sci-fi is going on in this. This was never boring. This was one I couldn't put down either. These were books also that I would get up in the middle of the night to read because I was excited about what was going to happen next. So it seems like the sci-fi books have really got me interested in like reading nonstop. But I still am a fan of horror mostly. But there are sci-fi books out there that just like really, really blew my mind. Okay, so also back to this. Okay, I digress. Back to Hyperion and the Fall of Hyperion. Okay. There are farcasters. These things that are called farcasters that you can get in and it'll transport you to another planet. It's kind of like, you know, Star Trek, where they beam you somewhere and scatter your molecules. The farcasters were kind of like this. And then there were religious cults based around little symbols. And these people would have like little crosses on their head. And because of the things that they would do by being in this cult, they were almost like retarded, mentally retarded, because of the things that they did to themselves, excuse me, proper English, themselves. There was an area there where it was constantly this like deadly lightning. And you could get struck by this lightning and then another bit of lightning would come and you would be alive again. So this priest, he goes through this ceremony because of guilt that he feels. And he's killed and then he rises again. He's killed and he rises again. And he supposedly does this for years. So that's like one story. That's the story of the priest who's the pilgrim. And then you have this soldier who has a story. And there's a story, it's about this guy who physically got himself to look like a satyr. That's right, folks. He altered himself to look like a satyr. And he's like really, oh, he's tacky. He is annoying, and he's rude, and he's a pervert, and he's crude, but he's also hilarious. And he's always arguing with this other pilgrim, and this other pilgrim is always like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to beat the crap out of you and kill you. And her name is Braun Lamia, and she is a private detective. And all these people, by the way, come from different planets. So she's this private detective, and she fell in love with an android. And so she has a murky past as well. They all have something they're trying to do while they're on this pilgrimage to this planet Hyperion. They travel on a boat through the sea of grass, and they have to escape the sand snakes. I don't know why I said sand snakes. Grass snakes, because, you know, it's a sea of grass. So that was interesting. I thought they could have had a few more, weird creatures on the planet Hyperion other than the snakes. But as it goes along, you get introduced to more strange ideas. Really good, really engaging. And it's all these politics are going on. Different planets are at war. Everybody has conflicting interests. And there's this one man, he is on this pilgrimage because he wants to go back to the time tombs. They're all headed for the time tombs that are on Hyperion, and all for different reasons. And this man, he wants to help his daughter because his daughter somehow got caught up in something happening that only happens every so many years in one of the time tombs, and she regressed. She aged backwards. And so he's carrying this baby around because, he wants to help her. He wants her to grow again. He doesn't want her to die because she disintegrates. And through it all, there's this ominous creature known as the Shrike. And the Shrike is like this, shaped like a golem. It's huge, and it's like metal. It's made of metal. And blades, like sharp blades of metal. And they're always worried about the Shrike, and the Shrike is kind of like enigmatic. You don't know, at times you don't know what the Shrike's purpose is. You don't know who created the Shrike. You don't know whose side he's on. You just know that he's scary. So this was excellent, and it went even further in the fall of Hyperion. It continued the story. I'm not done with the whole series yet because there's another one called Endymion, and then there's the Rise of Endymion. So I have to see what happens. I'm pretty sure they're going to be just as awesome as the Hyperion books. So there you go. I recommend by Dan Simmons, Hyperion and the Fall of Hyperion. Okay, last but not least, this sci-fi book is a classic. I urge you to read it. If you haven't read this yet, I urge you to read it, okay? It's A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. It is incredible. The way it manipulates the reader, the way it gets you to think. You don't even know what your opinion is by the end of the story. If you get the chance to read this, go for it. Even if you've seen the movie. When I got the book, I was like high school, senior in high school. And in the back, I was like, oh, what is this? What am I getting myself into? Pff, please. Because there was a glossary in the back, because the teenagers in this society, which was basically like anarchy, okay, they had their own language for things. And I had to keep going back and, okay, what's this word mean? Let me look in the glossary. What's this word mean? But I found as I read that I started to just remember what the words meant. And it was no problem reading. I would know what everything meant. For example, the opening sentence of the book is, I was velo-setting Moloko in the Cordova milk bar with my 4 droogs. Okay? Just to give you an idea of the language in there. And it basically follows this one teenager, Alex, who is evil and horrible. You just hate this guy when you're reading it. And you hate his friends. They're god-awful, okay? Violence, violence, violence. They call it the ultra-violence. That's what the kids do for kicks. But then something happens. His friends get sick of him and they set him up. So he's arrested. So he decides to sign up for this treatment called the Ludovico treatment that's supposed to curb his violence. He's supposed to get like really, really sick whenever he thinks violent thoughts. But it kind of backfires because, like, even if he thinks about killing a fly, he's like horribly, horribly sick. And he becomes a victim to everybody because he can't do anything because he doesn't have free will. He gets sick if he thinks about any violence. And, bad things start happening to him. And you're like, damn it, now I feel sorry for him. How could I feel sorry for this creep? It totally changes. Like I said, the author manipulates you into thinking from another point of view. And that bothered me. I did not want to feel sorry for Alex. Not at all. I mean, this was a god-awful human being, but it makes you think. You question, okay, we need to have free will, right? Bad or good, look what happens when you don't have your own free will. And I'm not going to tell you any more about it. There's a lot more, a whole lot more in there. Just give it a try. It's excellent. All right, well, thank you for stopping by.